Are we audible?
I believe we are audible.
Yeah. Yesterday we were clipping a little bit, and got
Coming in loud and clear.
a lot of good feedback yesterday. People say, "Stop holding those mics. You guys been doing this too long to hold your own mics."
We're gonna get some booms. We're gonna get some booms, and we're gonna get a podcast board. It's called the Podcaster. It's $600.
Yeah, Anton Crawley just sent us a Facebook message saying, because we looked on Amazon.com and it was like, you can get this board, but it's going to be like 4 weeks out. It's like, whoa. And apparently there's a company that's shipping them. So hopefully we can upgrade our tech here while we're locked down.
And booms. Yes, Eric. Thank you.
At the ranchette. Let me just take this off. While we're locked down here at the ranchette in Austin, Texas. It is kind of cool that we are both mutually sanitized and like monitoring each other's every move. And I don't know if I like you more or less right now.
Well, I don't know, but we're talking about like who's going to break first. And I'm giving you a hard time. Like you're going to break first. As soon as I see a deal on Craigslist, like I'm going to have to like bargain with you. And there's like going to be a
big part of your life is interacting with strangers about deals on Craigslist. Yeah. Something we'll get to. In fact, one of the things I want to do an episode about, if y'all got any questions about this, we're going to do this within the next few weeks here, is a car buying guide. Because yesterday you got blew up by a few people.
Twice.
And then I even got blew up over the interim about car buying. Last night, before I went to bed, I was talking with a buddy about picking up a van. So
it's going to be a great time to buy these types of assets because people are going to be selling them. I'm already starting to see them roll out of the garage and people looking for that extra couple $1,000s. So now's going to be a great time if you know what you want to buy. And we're going to put out a used car buying guide. I actually did an episode, done 2 episodes on it. I definitely recommend listening to the one I did with my friend Corey Ruth about buying these types of assets.
Meet the Deal Master is what it's called. It's an awesome episode. And I, in fact, called Corey the other night for a personal consultation about a few vehicles I'm looking into. And the guy's like a genius level, sharing his experience. He has a ridiculous amount of experience. It's really cool.
He does.
And by the way, I got to put this into circulation because I want to buy a zombie van, which is essentially, a van.
Are you the only person that calls it a zombie van?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I want to put like little pickaxe and shovel in front of the grill and maybe have a shotgun holder up to, the zombie movies. You run around, no one's around. I think it's a cool term though, zombie portfolio. If you look in the watch world, I have my zombie watch on right now. And it's this idea of, if things get really tough, what items might end up being practical and survive in a really tough time. Like we were joking, our grocery order that's coming in today was made like a week and a half ago. Mm-hmm. And we're just looking at our order like, who ordered cauliflower? Like cauliflower is not what we need right now. We need frozen pizza.
Frozen pizzas, frozen burritos.
Who ordered cauliflower? Like, what were we thinking? It was like this time of ultimate decadence. I want to know, by the way, like, where's the gluten people? How are they getting through this right now? Because like I'm on the shopping app, like, you click something, it's like, we're out of stock of that. And then the app will be like, will you take this like alternative? And it's like, yeah, just bring me any pickle. Like, I don't care. Like if it's the hipster pickle, I'll just take classic at this point.
They're starting to make decisions for you in the stores. So when you order your food, the person that's picking it up a lot of times says like, this isn't available. Will you accept the substitution? But you kind of have to be in front of your phone while that's happening, or who knows what's going to show up.
Well, it's gone the exact opposite way because just 3 weeks ago, every American or most of us were at the restaurant saying, I see that you have it this way on the menu, but I'd actually like to customize that. And now we're the opposite. Just take whatever.
Take anything.
Just drop it in front of me so long as it's not cauliflower.
Your van, though, on a serious note, you are looking for a van. You want to call it the zombie van. I think that's appropriate, but you're looking to upgrade your van. You're in a Honda Odyssey. We went on a camping trip the last week, and you're actually looking to upgrade to what they call Class B.
Yeah.
Which is they say Sprinter van because that's the most popular one. It's a Mercedes chassis. But basically, if you're in America or Europe, it's these large vans that have high roofs on
like
them.
An Amazon truck,
an Amazon delivery truck. And a lot of people and companies are converting those into RVs. So you can live in a full-time shower, kitchenette.
And here's
beds.
What's cool about them is that they're stealthy. So, and they're flexible that you could use them as a daily driver because their footprint isn't that much bigger than a normal automobile. In fact, they're the same size as your pickup truck out there. You have a pretty big pickup truck. So by the way, it's huge. It looks like a freaking train from the front. These F-250s, all of a sudden they decided just to start making them look,
they're huge,
absolutely ridiculous. Well, these Sprinter bands are, I don't even know the exact dimensions, but they're not all that much different. And the idea is that you don't have to stay in an RV park, that you can basically park anywhere. You can go to the drive-through. You don't, it's not this big operation to get around. And so they're very popular with outdoor athletes. So you think about climbers and mountain bikers specifically, going to the trailhead and just sleeping there.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got water on board. You've got a generator or solar on board. And so you can hang out at the trailhead. Or
that costs Zach. New 4x4 fully loaded is $130,000. But you can find them somewhat depreciated, front wheel drive, $60,000, fully built out. Now, it's interesting to me when that starts to compete with the house, or when it starts to compete with your rent. So it might be the case that this asset class actually goes up in times like these, where people lose their house, people can't find ways to pay rent.
And today we're going to talk about baselining. I don't know if you can read that online. We got some terms up here. We'll fix that, the tech here, but this idea of baselining is radically reducing your expenses to get that most valuable asset, which isn't a monthly salary. It's your time. Check out this YouTube channel. I love looking at the extremes. There's this awesome YouTube channel called Cheap RV Living. And for a variety of reasons, a lot of it could be an accident. People have like a physical disability. People just get fed up with work. It could be something bad happened. It could be they were inspired. They just said, one guy I was watching a few days ago said, you know what? I worked 2 jobs my whole life. And at a certain point, I figured I just worked enough for a whole lifetime. And so I live out of this van right now because I want to just go hiking and ride my bike around. And I'm 60 and I don't have much more bike rides left in me. And I thought, yeah, buddy, like that's my guy right there.
Could be a pandemic. I was actually reading today that campsites and national parks are getting flooded with people that are leaving places like New York City that have the ability to, because they have a Class B or a Class A or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're getting out of the middle of the epicenter.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of different reasons why you'd want one of these vehicles. I have one, and I'm glad that you're inspired to get one.
Yeah.
Today we're going to talk about remote work.
Remote work for life. Can you see that? Remote for life.
We're going to talk about both sides of it, but we're going to be heavy on the how to get a remote job or how to figure out a remote career. Because I think a lot of people are trying to figure that out right now. A lot of people are in a situation where this is a big opportunity, right? Maybe you got laid off. Maybe your company's going remote. Maybe you need new tools, new skill set to be able to compete in that market.
So if you're an entrepreneur watching this and you followed the TMBA pod for a long time now, maybe some of this episode would be relevant for your friends and family that are thinking about this transition, which, what we're finding is we run a remote job board called Dynamite Jobs. And over the past few weeks, our traffic is just bam, through the roof. But the problem is that the traffic is from candidates, people that are looking for remote work, and it's less so from companies looking to hire in the exact moment. Now, that's going to balance out over time. But the question that we're trying to answer today is, this is a transition. It's going to take time. You want to work remotely. What can you start to do today that's going to set you up for that career of a lifetime? And part of it is baselining, reducing your expenses. But we'll get to that. Before we talk about remote work, I think you want to do one of your favorite all-time things besides buying things on Craigslist. Bag on airlines.
Bag on airlines. Well, this show so far, we've read a tweet at the beginning of the show, and so this one's not so related to what we're talking about today, but I do think it's fun. Ryan Callow says in his tweet, maybe we should announce a bailout of the airlines and then keep delaying it until finally we cancel and give them hotel vouchers. I saw another tweet the other day regarding the airlines, because these are some of the first corporations to try and ask for these bailouts and start talking about, oh, poor me. And I think that the airlines, we love to hate them, but they're necessary. Right?
Yeah.
But it is an interesting tweet. They said basically 2019, and this is like the airlines talking. We're going to charge you an extra $150 for that bag, and no, you can't sit next to your wife. And then 2020, airlines today, it's like, sorry, hey, we have a favor to ask. But just generally speaking, it's interesting to me to look at these corporations and these companies that treated us badly for previous years, and maybe not badly. You don't think about it badly, but it's like every time I book a ticket, I'm like, oh man, this is painful. Like they want to charge me all this stuff, and then, oh look, hard times. Now they're in trouble. What are you going to do for me?
Yeah.
Or what have you done for me lately? And I think this applies to small businesses.
It does.
Large businesses. If you treat people awful, and when times are good, if you price gouge them, if you do the things that the airlines did, and then 2020 rolls around and you want to bail out, I mean, people are getting very critical of this bailout on Twitter. Mark Cuban is one of them.
Yeah.
Mark Cuban.
What up, Mark?
And I think a lot of people are probably going to rally around this and remember,
Yeah.
So treat people right.
Never forget that one time you charged me for my extra baggage. By the way, our last segment today, after we talk about remote work, we're going to be talking about pricing theory and emotional margin, which is something we're going to bring up then, related to this concept of how people feel about paying what they do pay for your products. So that's something for the entrepreneurs out there. All right. Anything in the chat before
they said the video stopped working, but it's good now, so that's good to know.
The video stopped working?
Yeah, we're going to work on maybe getting a direct wire out here. All right. Remote work. Dan, I want to talk about a bunch of different things. I want to talk about how to find a job, what companies are looking at remote work now, and is the resume dead? So first off, let's start with that. Is the resume dead?
Is the resume dead? And its close cousin, LinkedIn, its digital cousin. This is, we talk about it like when we were growing up, we lived in something like a credentialed world.
Mm-hmm.
And because the world was more opaque and it was harder to know like what an individual particular person was doing, you would use these sort of strata, and they would be created by university systems. And it's like, oh, I'm, got a marketing degree. I worked at a marketing firm for 3 years. Therefore, like I'm this kind of person. Invite me in for an interview.
Yeah.
Well, now we live in a post-credential society, at least in the bootstrapped remote internet space, which is what we represent, remote for life. And we just don't care. Like your resume and your LinkedIn profile are minimum viable. Like it's like having a pulse. It's really even hard to say, like, as a founder of a few of these companies, you look at someone who went to a impressive school and it's like, I don't know, did you play for the hockey team? Like, what does that even mean that you went to that school? Like, does that mean that you feel entitled? Like it could even have a negative signal.
You know what it means to me? They're probably going to have to pay back the loans.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's real. So as an employer, you think, well, this person is going to demand a certain salary, regardless of their skill set, because they went to university and they probably have loans for that.
Okay. So here's what I want to talk about: how to react to two things right now. The death of the resume, number one. And number two, the fact that a lot of people want remote jobs. And at least for the next few weeks and months, there's going to be less of them. So it's going to be even more competitive, as companies are just in a time of uncertainty. So most people are just on a hiring freeze right now. Just like, let's see what happens over the next few weeks. And then things will start to level out. No, good opportunity for you to build a personal asset that exists beyond your resume, that by the time these companies start to open up a little bit, you will be competitive. You will be remote for life. You will be baselining. You keep your expenses low so you can build that personal asset. You might even find yourself with the amazing opportunity to donate some of your time to work for free. Why would you do that? Well, because you get to work with OPP, other people's platforms, and OPM, other people's money. So you go up to somebody like a Noah Kagan, who runs sumo.com, and you say, hey, could I, I've looked at all your stuff. I'd love to do this project for you. It'll take me a week. I think I can get this kind of result for you. And if I get this result, which everybody wins, what I get is I get to brag about it. I get to put that case study on my personal asset, which is maybe LinkedIn at minimum, but it could be a personal blog. It could be a Twitter account, a Facebook page. I mean, what you want to be doing during this downtime is building the kind of asset that your target companies ultimately want. So if a copywriter applies for a copywriting position and it says you went to Duke University for writing, and you have a nice LinkedIn thing and it's all written well, I'm kind of like, well, if you're the kind of person who writes successful copy, why aren't you writing successful copy? And I think that's the thing. Like all these barriers, these gates are down right now. There's nothing stopping you from going out and writing a successful piece, a case study. You analyze the industry, the target companies you want to work for, and you know what, do what the old consulting phrase is. You ask them for their watch and you tell them what time it says. You look at these companies and you say, here is the sorts of things you should be doing. But you know what? Don't even make a judgment. I've already made it for you. I've gone and made a case study. I've called up your competition. I've called up people who work for you. Look at this beautiful case study that shows the sorts of results that my work can have. That's a personal asset.
People have done this for us in the past, and we've actually ended up hiring them. It's very hard if you're a company like ours, a small bootstrap business, for somebody to go out, do free work for you. That's good. Show you the work, and then for you not to hire them. I mean, it's like undeniable. It's like,
totally.
Sure. Like worst case, like let's do this for 3 months, see how it pans out. Maybe it turns into a full-time job. I can think of that happening several times, but you have to take initiative if you're on the remote work side of it. You have to go out. You have to take a risk. Don't ask me my permission. Hey, yeah. Can I do this for you? Just show up, make the work.
This is a big mistake that junior level professionals make, is that they underestimate the cost of making a decision and the cost of action. So here's one thing. Countless times in our inboxes, people will write us and offer to do things for free for us. Like, hey, I'll do this thing for you. And what I feel like they don't really recognize is that, oh, that's not free at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I gotta like get on the phone with you. You're unproven. I gotta like give you logins to certain accounts. I gotta make sure it doesn't screw up other parts of the company. Like, nah, not interested. Like,
right.
That's a big cost. Like, I can barely follow up with all of my staff members that I'm paying, let alone some rando who's coming in the side door.
Right.
So I think another thing on this level, because a lot of applicants will say, oh, I made, 100 applications. I'm kind of bummed. Like, and your effort level goes down. Well, we'll talk about that in a minute, but I think also junior level professionals don't understand like the time pressure that founders are under. Like, I literally go to bed every night with like half of my inbox not even touched yet. And it's like just a constant game of triage for a lot of founders. And so you have to find a way to understand and augment that situation, like not cost anybody's time while you deliver value. And one way you can do that is you can be supremely interesting and useful without asking anything of anybody. And that's why personal blogs can be such amazing assets, because it's like, hey, just read this article. It's really smart. And it shows you how you can save time and make more money and run a more effective business, or it's just interesting. And there's countless examples of people who've built whole careers off of this. In fact, on Tropical MBA podcast next week, we're going to have Nat, the founder of Growth Machine. It's a digital agency. And he did this on his own personal blog. Taylor Pearson, who used to work for us, taylorpearson.me.
Well, Nat actually did exactly what we're talking about for Noah, I believe.
Exactly.
Right.
For Noah
like
Kagan
this was his approach. Yeah.
And that's why I brought, yeah, exactly.
So skill sets, though, boils down to skill sets. A lot of this, Dan, for me. There was a little antidote that we're talking about before we flipped on the microphones. And I asked you, yeah, antidote.
If you had an antidote, you'd be a rich man right now.
I'd asked you how many jobs you had applied for in your life and not gotten.
Yeah.
Your answer was?
Hundreds.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like 2 or 3. And there's like a stark difference there. And so we're just sitting down trying to figure out.
Do you think you're better than me?
No, not at all. I think I picked the winners and go after them. Like,
yeah,
I didn't have like probably it sounds like you had more of a shotgun approach. Another difference. Sorry, this might make me better than you. I'm not sure. You can decide. Coming out of college, I actually had a skill set. Like, I had a skill, and it was design. And I knew how to use certain pieces of software. But I knew how to develop products.
You didn't just have some resume. You had a portfolio with the crap that you actually built.
Yeah. And this is weird, right? Because why do these professions like design, engineering, and there's others, but like I left school with a portfolio.
Yeah.
But certain different degrees like philosophy, it's like hard to leave with a portfolio. but really it isn't, right? Like you could have written a couple books, you could have written some papers.
Well, I did, but no one pays for that stuff.
Exactly.
No one's paying for 4,500 words on Heidegger.
Exactly.
That's the last thing people pay to not have it.
So you didn't do it.
Yeah.
But in this post-credential world, that's pretty much what you do have to do. Like if you want to get a job at one of these companies, if you want to get a job at our company, you got to have something to show for it.
The reality is the vast majority of college degrees do not directly translate to something that's profitable in the business world. And so, especially for small business and bootstrap internet remote work, word salad, this kind of stuff we do, you have to then do it all over again. Sorry, but I'll tell you what, building a personal asset in a specific skill that's profitable to small businesses is cheaper than going to college, and it takes way less time. And by the way, half the time you get paid for it, right? You do a free apprenticeship for a few months. All of a sudden, founder says, this person's really valuable. I feel guilty. Let's put this person on the payroll or whatever, or let's hook this person up with a job at the next firm. And that's just how it works nowadays, because businesses in our space are not limited by geography. So you have to be more competitive. Look, remote work looks great on the surface. Pajamas, by the way, I don't like doing the show because I got to wear real clothes. So like normally pajamas, hoodie, baseball cap all day long.
Yeah.
And sure, it's great. You can travel, you can jump in the RV, you can go a state over and you can just do your job. We were talking to two people in the RV park. They were both living out of that RV for 8 years, having normal jobs. That's awesome. It's great. But you know what they both had? Skill set. And they were competitive, because now you're competing with everybody, where when I applied for my first jobs, you just schlep up to the nearest marketing firm or whatever, you drop your resume on the table and you try to be impressive in the email, in the interview.
Well, companies and people were limited to the cities that they were in. So if you're in New York, like chances are, because it attracts a lot of talent, you're going to have a big talent pool, but you're also going to have to pay them a lot of money. It's going to be competitive. Now things have flattened out.
Yeah.
So as somebody that provides remote jobs, it's much harder. Like if you're from California and maybe let's say you have a skill set, let's say it's copywriting, you're competing with somebody. Maybe they're in South America and they have a much lower living wage.
Yeah.
Or it costs them much less to live, right? And you're both good copywriters. Well, who are you going to pick if you're the small business owner? Right. Well, if I hire somebody in California, I'm going to have to pay all kinds of taxes and this and that.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to know that person's living in California and they have higher rent, things like that.
You know when this is not a question? When copywriter in California has a portfolio of articles. Oh, I wrote this article for Noah Kagan. I wrote this article for Tropical MBA and it went viral. Okay. Yeah. Hired. Right? Because I want someone that's going to write viral articles. And that's super hard to do. Almost nobody can do it. Right? So if you can just hunker down, baseline your expenses, write a couple viral articles, figure out a formula. It's not rocket science, right? You've done harder things in your life than this. Trust me. Going to college is a lot harder than what we're talking about right now. The hard part about this is you have to do things that are uncertain, right? When you choose a major, it's like major onto my resume, onto the job. And now we're inverting everything. What we're saying is don't take a loan to go to college, reduce your expenses to almost nothing so that you have your time. Then apply your time to build a personal asset. You can do that on your own by offering free work to companies, or you can apprentice for companies. Eventually, your apprenticeship becomes your resume. And you can do this in like a few years.
Yeah.
And you can get paid to do it. So the only downside of this approach is that it's more uncertain.
It's painful.
It hurts emotionally to humans.
Emotionally.
Humans we want to purchase this stuff. So I want to say, oh, so-and-so university promises me that I'll have this kind of job if I get this kind of piece of paper. So I'll go to the bank and like get the loan. Then it's like, it's a consumable way.
Well, the truth is like option A, the one where you go to college, you have a resume, and then you get the job. The reason we're advocating for this, not is because like one is better than the other. It's because option A is going to disappear. Like it's just straight up going to disappear unless you're in sciences or things like that.
Hot take.
So
yeah,
I think now's the time. I mean, one of the things that we're trying to do on this show, Dan, I think during these trying times, during this pandemic, while we're sitting in my shop, is to look at the positive aspects of this. Like, what are the good things that are going to come out of this? Well, I think one of the good things is that more companies are going to go remote. Everybody's working from home right now, and things are probably going pretty well for some of these companies. They're going to realize that they don't need the offices. And then you know what they're going to realize? Maybe I don't need to be paying New York salary prices. Okay.
Yeah.
So then maybe they're going to hire somebody somewhere else. But for those people that are looking to build skill sets and to get into these situations, there's never been a better time because now you got tons of downtime.
Yeah, and I want to say something because tomorrow's episode is going to be about, is digital nomadism dead? Dead.
Yeah.
It's a cool clickbaity title. Interesting discussion right now, but there's another cost that's geographical, which is administrative cost, taxes, fees, all kinds of stuff that's associated with where the person is. So there's not only a cost of living element on the side of the employee, the remote worker, but on the founder side, on the business side, there's associated costs with hiring people in certain places. So kind of crazy, but you move to an affordable country in Europe or in Asia, and you're like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to like live in Portugal for a year or whatever? Yeah, it would be cool. And that could be an asset to your career. So, you know, it's tough, it's competitive, but there's cool hacks to it. There's cool ways you can do this. So
Noah Kagan showed up, actually. We've been talking about you, Noah.
Twice. We miss you, Noah.
He says tacos. Yes, I agree with that. And then it says, is it remote or he says WFH, but I think it was work from home. Yeah, work from home. Is it remote or work from home? What's the difference?
Work from home is a temporary state. Work from home is the keyword on the internet right now that you get scammy opportunities, basically. Like, I made $7,000 off of Google last month. Just pay me $700 and I'll teach you how to make 7,000. So it's an issue of semantics and SEO right now, I think. But in our case, remote companies are those that are sort of like optimized locationally, and each individual person is based where it makes most sense for them, for lifestyle, for business reasons. Whereas work from home is like kind of question mark right now. How long is that going to last? Yeah, I don't know. Issue of semantics. I can go for both.
I think it's an issue of semantics, but I do think what happens is people start working from home, and then they realize that the freedoms that they have, like they can travel around, that they can live in different places, that maybe they can live in a van
down by the river.
They can do all these things. Something we haven't talked about though, as far as work from home or remote work, is discipline. When you started working from home or remotely working, did you have problems with discipline? Did you find yourself cracking beers at 10 a.m.?
No.
Why?
There's one final key term: autodidact. Autodidact. One of the things about me, and I suspect about a lot of autodidacts, is that you have to have a why behind what it is you're doing, and that drives your discipline. It drives your work ethic. And when you have this opportunity as a remote worker to not be constrained by geography, you can essentially choose any company, any project, any industry, because you just need one to say yes. And then you're personally in business. And that what was so awesome about our business is we plucked it out of the sky and said, well, we love radio. We love it. And we love this vehicle of personal freedom. I'll tell you the nugget, the ear nugget that came down to me, and it was whispered to me. It wasn't explicit. It wasn't just that you can live anywhere and work. That wasn't thing, because I had always dreamed about being like the dirtbag dropout, you know, the dirtbag scene where it's just like, I'm going to live off of nothing. I'm going to live out of my minivan and take bike rides. And I think that's totally cool. But there was a little message I heard whispered, which is, oh no, you can actually get wealthy and live anywhere you want to. And it might not be a bad strategy for getting wealthy over the long term. Of course, there's bigger salaries to be had if you go with the traditional way, but there might be more upside potential if you take advantage of these new opportunities.
Yep.
And so I had my why. I got to choose my industry. And so was it hard to be disciplined? Hell no. You know what was hard to be disciplined? Waking up at 6:13 in the morning, putting on my crummy khakis from Kohl's, jumping in my shitty car, driving the same damn way on the same damn highway as everybody else, and then sitting in a teal office for 9 hours waiting for China to wake up so I could call. I mean, I had almost no time in my apartment.
Yeah.
That's what it was hard to stay disciplined with that.
I remember thinking basically something similar to you, and I never want this to end, so I'm going to work my ass off to preserve this. Like every day, like I was like, this is amazing. I never want this to end.
Yeah. It's like we say on the show all the time. You try so hard in your business or in your career, like you think that one thing's going to be a big break. Like if you're a freelance writer, it's like, oh, you know, the Atlantic accepted my story or something. It's going to be my big break. And then it's like just another Wednesday. But on the other side of that token, Wednesday is the best part of this whole thing, because Wednesday is when, you know, you get through your emails and you look up and you say, you want to go for a bike ride? And it's like, this is the best, because I mean, we've experienced the opposite, which is that I remember I was like in a moment where I had to like sit in my car. I remember actually pulling out a piece of paper on my steering wheel and doing the calculation of how much of my time I owned. And it was depressing because I calculated in all like the related costs to my job, because it's not just your job, not just the commute, but it's like I had to do laundry in a different way to have like nice enough clothes. And it was actually, laundry was a big expensive burden because it would take me hours a week. And then it's like, well, I kind of got to exercise too. And at the end of the day, I had like almost no discretional time. And
that's depressing.
That's depressing.
Taylor Banks asks, I think work from home also somewhat assumes a home base versus remote work, which encompasses working from anywhere and changing location often. Even when you think you're a full-time nomad like me. Home base.
I like that.
I have a home base and I find it very comforting. There was a year where I didn't have a home base, and I found it exhausting because I was always trying to figure out where the next place I was going to go to.
Yeah.
I was trying to explore a bunch of different cities and countries, and ultimately it was a great experience because I saw a bunch of things. But I remember being exhausted. I was in Mexico and I just like sat back and I was like, my lease is up. Like, I literally do not know where I need to go next. Like, I have to go somewhere. I can't stay in the country any longer. And I was just like, I just want to go home, man.
Yeah.
I just want to go home. And I think there is a lot of value in having a home base. And I think it's almost a silly conversation. It's like a point of pride right now for digital nomads that like, yeah, man, like this is all my stuff. This is it. Like, I don't have anything else. Like, I don't have an address. Like, how am I going to do my taxes if I don't have an address? This is the government's problem. You know, no, it's whatever makes you comfortable. For me, I like to be somewhere for 4 to 6 months out of the year. I don't like to be in Texas when it's hot. It's too hot. I like to go to Barcelona with you. That's a personal choice. I think everybody has to make their own choice about this. The other benefit of having a home is that you have a setup and there's a bit of comfort to it, but there's also a bit of routine and rhythm. When you move to a new place, like it's always a 7-day challenge, right? It's like, how long is it going to take me to figure out where a decent restaurant is, where I can get my laundry done, this and that, this and that.
All right. You know, now there's opportunity behind the podcast, because for years we've been editing this thing and that's all wonderful. And you hear Ian's good advice, but I'm going to tell you what's really motivating this. The story behind the bullshit advice, which is this guy's extremely high maintenance, you know, and he has these hobbies, which are fantastic. And someday we'll give you a tour, but he builds race cars. He's a fantastic racer. He trains other racers. And so that's an amazing part about having a home for you, is that like your setup, if we were to reproduce your setup, it would take us years.
It would take years. A lot of people are actually chiming in saying home base rules, home base rules. Awesome. I love a home base.
Dude, home base is trending so hard right now.
Okay, Dan, anything else that we want to mention about
any remote workers have any questions about, you know, if we can help you out in the future? Of course, right now, what we're trying to figure out is how to best help candidates.
At dynamitejobs.co, we put up a site about 2 years ago, connecting remote companies with remote workers.
Yeah.
And the traffic is exploding now, as to be expected, based on the trends that are happening right now. We're seeing a massive influx in people that are looking for remote jobs. I want to talk real quick about providing remote jobs, because I think if you're out there and you have a small business or a company that specifically hires remote, this is an amazing opportunity for you too. A lot of people are cutting their expenses. A lot of people are cutting their costs. A lot of people are trying to figure out, is my company bloated through these times? How can I lean down and then figure out a way to go forward? Because we don't know how long this is going to last.
Well, on that point, what about all this work from home movement? I bet a lot of these companies that send all their staff home just ain't going to pay the rent.
That's right.
Boom.
They're not going to pay the rent, and they might not ask these people to come back.
Yeah.
So now is an amazing time, I think, if I own a company that hires remote, to get better talent at cheaper prices.
Absolutely. I mean, we're looking at a reordering of pay scale right now, for sure. I mean, cost basis for everything. That's yeah.
So you have a company, maybe it's in Austin, Texas, 20 employees, maybe 10 of them are remote, right? Maybe those 10 people that worked in Austin that had high salaries and that had to come to the office that you're going to abandon, maybe they never come back to work. And now you have an opportunity.
Maybe they can't deliver from home. I mean, that's the other thing. Like
Maybe they
working from
can.
home is not easy for everybody as well.
So I think it's an amazing opportunity now. If you own a small business that's looking to go remote, or maybe half your staff is remote, go to dynamitejobs.co. We literally have thousands of people with resumes on file,
yeah,
that are looking for
Profiles,
opportunities like this. Yeah.
And also, I mean, I must say, like right now, Dynamite Jobs is kind of like it's positioned for remote jobs that don't suck, but mostly what it is like marketing, operations, customer service. We're still pretty light on the tech side, which I think for most remote workers makes a ton of sense because, you know, we are in this middle ground of like customer service and marketing stuff and things that you don't necessarily need to study for years in order to be proficient at, whether it's Facebook marketing or PPC or whatever. This is stuff that you can go out and learn in a couple of weeks, couple of months, build that personal asset, and then be well positioned to get, you know, a long-term remote job when things start to balance out, because we are going to see a hiring freeze here for the next few weeks.
Dan, we have a couple comments here. Oh, we got a full-time RVer now. That's awesome. There's a lot of chatter about home base. I think this is an interesting conversation for later.
Tomorrow we are going to talk about home base versus
external
digital nomadism.
monitors.
Yeah.
But I want to get on to pricing theory. That's one of the
You
things.
don't want to talk about external monitors? It's like one of my favorite topics.
No. I'm gonna make you think about that.
Okay. We're going to talk about those external monitors tomorrow. I think more important than the concept of remote work, generally speaking. Just external monitors. I'm all about it. I love it.
I heard, and I don't know if this is true, but I heard the price of external monitors is going up, or they're like sold out.
I heard they're sold out everywhere. Yeah,
it's
awesome. It's funny to see what we really value. You know, are all of our allergies still going to exist? Are our unique diets still going to exist? Are we going to get made fun of by the next generation for our insistence on not shaking hands and washing things? You know, are we going to continue to eat cauliflower rice, or are we just going to go for the rice?
Are people going to adopt the washcloth over toilet paper? These are questions for our time.
Amazon Asian style bum gun. That is why doesn't every American have a bum gun? I'll tell you what. Sometimes it's the simple things in life. I spend half of the year in Asia, half of the year here in America. And the first two things I notice when I come back to America, there's amazing things about America that I love. I'm always here in September because I want to see the football guys go out and play football. I love the university settings in America. I love the highways. So many wonderful things about America. You know what I hate? I hate, and no offense, I hate the service. I hate having to become friends with every damn waiter that I have.
Well, my friend,
I hate getting checked up on before I've even taken a bite. Like, if it wasn't good, why did you bring it to me?
This problem has been solved for you. I don't know if you noticed, but you can't go to a restaurant anymore.
I know I'm kicking them when they're down, but this is a broader issue, and it's one of great importance. I hate the arrogance of the American service industry that they think they're better than the Europeans. The Europeans just bring you your food and shut up. That's what you're supposed to do. I don't want to have a new relationship every time I want a hamburger.
You're really kicking somebody while they're down.
I know it's bad. It's inappropriate. We would probably edit that segment out. We'll keep it here because we're doing a live pod. The second thing is sometimes you got to cross lines. The second thing is I noticed toilet paper, which is apropos of the moment. Toilet paper sucks. You know, in Asia, they just use you get a car wash and you're clean. It's amazing. You know, and like now you feel like a barbarian. You know,
look, as if it wasn't a big enough shift to go from corporate America, working a job, having a resume. We've proposed a new way forward in this show, which is like building a skill set, doing the work in front of people. You've introduced too much to me, my friend. Like I cannot
keep it simple.
Yeah, I cannot abandon my bathroom behavior.
Thank you, everybody, for your questions. We have another segment before we finish, and we'll do Q&A at the end if there is any cues. And by the way, we're going to get one of these fancy boards so that y'all can we'd love to bunch of DC members. We'd love to buzz into the show here. We'll see if we can figure that out.
Okay. Before we get into this pricing theory, we actually have a question or two on this remote work topic.
Okay.
So Jessica says tips on strategies for determining a skill set that'll work before you spend the time to learn it. How to get real experience without experience. Okay. Tips on a skill set. Well, there's a lot of things that are high in demand right now for remote companies. I mean, I think honestly though, it has to be something that you're attracted to. Has to be something that you're interested in. It can't just be anything, right?
Yeah.
Like tell a story, and I think my story is a little bit different than yours. And I got a job when I was 14 working at a bike shop because I was interested in bikes. It was always weird to me when people went and got jobs and things that they weren't interested in. It was like, so you're just trading your time for money. I was trading my time for experience. Like the money part was like okay for me, but it was really like the experience. It was being around these people, it was understanding the industry. So I think Jessica, like my first idea for you is like pick an industry, a niche, a topic, something that you're interested in.
Yeah.
And if what you're interested in doesn't make money, start getting interested in something that makes money.
I got a personal story. A time, Jessica, that I made what I thought was a bad decision at the time that turned out to be a great one. And the whole while, I thought it was a bad decision. Other people made the opposite decision, and they made me feel bad about it. So here's the decision. I chose to study philosophy when I went to university. Why? Because it was the only thing I just wanted to. I loved it. And then the whole time I was at university, I'd run into these people that were way smarter than me. And they would say, well, I'm studying accounting. And I would say, why? And they would say, there's lots of accounting jobs. And I'd be like, damn, that's smart. And then someone would say, I'm studying marketing. And they say, why? Well, there's lots of marketing jobs. I'd be like, damn, like, but it turned out that I made the right decision because I have a personal motor for what I was doing.
Yeah.
And marketing is freaking easy. You don't need to go to school to learn how to pick up the blower.
Yep.
Or to write a couple viral articles. You can figure that stuff out. What matters the most is figuring yourself out. What is your unique skill set? And a lot of that comes down to passion. Here's the opportunity for the future of everyone's careers, because you got a global market of companies you can work for, thousands that you just need one win. So what do you really love? What would make you, well, you can't put a price on pride. You can't put a price on energy.
Yeah.
What do you think would be cool?
The motor is super important. I don't think I would get through any of this stuff if I didn't have a personal drive for it. It's very, the human condition is very weird. Like the motivations are very
yours
weird.
especially.
Yeah. you have to work on things that you're passionate about, or else you're just not going to work on it. I mean, that's extremely true for me, Dan, where you have a bit of an abundance in your life and you have to decide what project you're going to work on. Can't make me work on things I don't want to work on, right? It's just not possible. Alexander from our team, very good question. Alexander helps us run dynamitejobs.co. This is a good one for the remote job search. How should candidates assess companies? What should they be looking for? This is a two-sided relationship. I think even more so in 2020. When I was looking for a job first starting out of college, it was very one-sided. It felt very one-sided. It felt like the employers had most of the power unless you had a really good skill set.
Yeah.
I think like once you develop your skill set, you become a professional, and then it becomes more of a conversation. But I think if you're just starting out, it can be very one-sided. But I feel like this is changing in 2020.
Well, part of it, I want to come back to a principle here, is baselining. Having that personal asset and having your burn low. The thing that's going to screw you up here is if you're too thirsty, right? It's just like anything in life. If you are in a situation of dire need, then the question of evaluating companies sort of flies out the window, right? You're going to take anything you can get. So ideally you can, get yourself in a situation where you can do this evaluation. That's the first thing.
Yes.
That with that power dynamic comes this sense of intuition. And it brings me back to like thinking of Jessica. Like, I'll say this. A lot of small business owners that I've met are skeezy, because sometimes the reason you own a small business is because no one else will have you, right? No one's going to hire you. You can't hold down a job. You do shady things that takes advantage of people. And that's why you have some monies, typically not sustainable long-term monies, but enough to put out a job ad or whatever. And I think you need to be extra alert, because at least when you're walking into a corporation, you know what you're going to get. You're typically not going to get, you're going to get like sort of vague meta abuse, like act like a non-human, treat people like policy kind of abuse. But with small business, you could just be in a mucky situation, So I think that great founders are extremely transparent. And maybe this is difficult to see from the outside, but if you were to be in an interview with Ian and you just said, what's the net profit of your company last year? he would be excited by that question.
Yeah.
Because that's how he thinks. Like, as a founder of a company, you think at the most existential terms of the company. So if you can start the dialogue at that level, you're going to show that not only are you maybe a good fit for that job, but maybe you're a good fit as like a right hand, which is ultimately the biggest win of these kinds of jobs. Is this small company, you get to be at the table when all the decisions get made, and you get the credit when things go well. And my point to Jessica, thinking of her and myself in that situation, is if you're getting shady answers, if you don't feel comfortable, if people aren't willing to share information with you, ideally you'd just be out of there.
Again, it comes back to this power dynamic for me. When I'm evaluating a company as somebody that might potentially work there, this is an interview for me too. Like, consider yourself an equal. I think that that's important. When you go into that interview, when you go into that process, value yourself, you know,
Yeah.
have some self-pride, you know, like you have something to offer, you have a skill set. This isn't very much an interview for you as it is for them. And again, like asking these hard questions, asking about the trajectory of the company, the field, what's going on. I think these are all very important questions. The other thing that I'll say about transparency.
By the way, let's talk about questions real quick before we get to transparency, which is, how do you fail the section of the interview when you say, do you have any questions for me?
What's your vacation policy?
There you go. Boom. No hire. No hire. Get out.
It's got it. Those are secondary questions that can be evaluated after you get the job. You need to be asking pertinent questions about their company.
And just a tip on that, subsume your ego. It's not about you and this job. That's a side effect of being thirsty. It's about the company.
Yeah.
Like, if you can demonstrate that you care about the company more than your job, that's what great employees do. Like, you're part of a team. You're not thinking about how many points am I going to score tonight? How can I get a triple double? You're thinking about how can we have more points than the other team at the end of the night? And if you think like that, you're going to be a great team member.
Transparency, final thought on this, and then we're going to move on, is it's not that hard to find companies and founders that have public profiles now. If you apply to a job for us, you can listen to 450 episodes on the Tropical MBA. You can
450,
watch videos, something like
way
that.
more than that.
It's not that hard to figure out who Dan and I are. And I think that's the case for a lot of these small businesses now, is that these people have public profiles. And so certainly you should be able to do some
we like
research.
to talk about ourselves.
We do like to talk about ourselves.
Yeah. Ask me about my van. I'll tell you.
Last one on this job search, and then I really want to get on to pricing theory, but this is a good one. Someone says, I have been odd job SME consulting for over 10 years. I love fixing and improving broken things, systems, especially around the people and experience. Is a business MacGyver a thing? No idea what to call it.
Consultant?
This is a consultant. This is a person that comes in, that fixes things, that massages things, that identifies problems. Let me comment on this, because I've seen this a lot of times, and I think that there is a place for this. But I do think that most of the time these people exist, and you said you've been doing it the last 10 years, in bloated economies and bloated companies. This is when these people really shine, is because you think like everything's going great. I'm going to bring this person in. They're going to find some efficiencies. Nobody hires this person in downtimes. Everybody stays away from this person in downtimes, because you got to run lean. You got to have minimum viable. You got to figure out how you're going to make this survive. So I think this is a very difficult time for a person like this. That being said, another thing, a lot of these companies, these small businesses that we run, less than 10 people, I don't have generalists. There's no generalists in our companies right now. They are very specific and very targeted to the needs of the company and skill sets. Dan, what say you?
I would say it's easy to point out problems. It's hard to solve them in a way that's systematic and profitable. So the most sustainable way to approach something like that, like, it's the same thing, like the difference between being a critic and a creator. Like, and I don't mind being a critic. I love being a critic, but in terms of profitability and sustainability, like, the results actually end up like the actual money ends up mattering. And so if you find yourself in a role where you're the critic or the consultant, you might find that role can be difficult to sustain, because it's ultimately, like you said, it's the first thing to go. Like, yeah, everybody can come into your business and point out all the problems. It's easy, right? The hard part is sitting in a chair, strapping yourself to a spreadsheet, and actually fixing it. And the reality is a lot of problem diagnosers they are carrying a hammer and they're hitting a nail every time.
Yeah.
And they're tone deaf to the actual issue. So what happens is if they were to be strapped in the chair, which often they end up making a pitch to do so, they do something that's tone deaf for the company, because companies are so complex. This is why, like, I have a systematic way of evaluating. They make founders feel comfortable, and maybe even they structure their thoughts. And it's not that they can't be valuable. It's that they're not as valuable as they're presented. And I think, yeah, like the wheat from the chaff comes out in downtime. So I guess my thought on it, and again, this is, thank you for just giving us a talking point. I'm not speaking to anyone in particular.
Sure.
It's just a matter of the harder problems will ultimately probably be more sustainably profitable. That's my point.
Pricing theory?
Yeah, let's do a little pricing theory. So here's what I want to do with Itamar's question. Itamar is a DC member, brought up a super thoughtful prompt. We're not experts on pricing, but we have a lot of experience. And I just want to sort of start the conversation, maybe something we can continue in a future episode, because there's a lot of DC members talking about pricing and they have a lot more experience than we do. But maybe you just read his question and then I will tee off with a couple thought nuggets about pricing.
In the first episode, you guys mentioned trying to figure out, first live episode, how we can make this work somehow in relation to real estate properties and rent. It made sense to me, and it was leaning towards adopting the let's make this work across the board business principle during these times. And then Nabil from the DC started an interesting discussion about lowering prices. I was surprised to see how strongly other DCers were, with more experience than me, about lowering their prices, saying this is a no-no, a big no-no. Like, you don't ever want to lower your prices. Nabil goes on to say, we've raised our prices to almost double. We're in the process of launching a lower end product this week for a different segment of the market.
So did you lower your freaking prices?
Do you lower them?
Okay, so this is endlessly complex topic. There's no final word on pricing whatsoever, but I want to point out some thought nuggets. The first thing I think is a little underappreciated, especially when in the information market, like consulting, knowledge kind of space, is like pricing can often be not relative to much else. So like if you're the expert, for example, that people really think you're the expert on that one specific thing, then like it's hard to compare your pricing to anybody else's pricing. And so typically what happens is like consulting and like bespoke services sorts of things, like they're always trying to drive their pricing up, whereas product companies are typically trying to drive their pricing down and then introduce differentiated products that are more expensive at the top of the market.
So as it relates to like physical products, for example, which we're into for many years, your cost of goods is going to be similar to your competitors, meaning how you source your products and the materials you use. Everybody else is paying basically the same price for those things, right? And then the price of the product is anchored to who your market is and what they can afford. You know, I was talking about it, looking at a motorcycle here. You can't sell a motorcycle to a lot of people for $100,000. Now you can sell 3 motorcycles for $100,000, but if you want to sell a bunch of motorcycles, you can't do it. So there's a lot of like real costs and real constraints of a product company.
So I want to mention this point is directly related to Itamar, because I noticed, and I don't know if this is true, Itamar, but that he recently launched a coaching program which is designed to help entrepreneurs weather this storm. And Itamar is just a super sharp dude, and he can help clarify your thinking and stuff. So maybe you can toss your stuff in the chat there, Itamar, if you're here. But it was like in one day, him and Chris got 30 people to sign up for this, and part of the reason is because it was free. And so what I noticed over time is that there's an amazingly scientific, often in many businesses and many products, if you turn your price up and you turn your price down, the volume of purchases, it's almost scientific. And I've had real experience with this in my own business with event pricing versus, and it's like all the variables are controlled for except price. And this idea that price is just a number and that it's just a mindset is total bullshit. Like, and of course, we wouldn't be talking about it if it wasn't, but I think there's some of that idea out there. Your price matters a lot. It really does. And if you turn your price down, more people are going to buy it, more, all things considered. There's exceptions to every rule. There are exceptions to certain things, like certain products won't have any credibility if they're if they're not at least at a certain price. So there's exceptions in that direction. Now, you got anything about that?
Well, I'm just thinking about from like a consumer perspective, right? And I'm thinking about it in relationship to what's going on right now. Like I've seen a couple of people lower their prices in the last week or two. And one word comes to mind, which is desperate. So I just think, well, if they lowered their price now, what's it going to be 2 weeks from now?
Totally.
Like that's exciting. Like maybe I'll just wait 2 weeks.
Right. And in that case, if you're looking for a strategy, because I was just trying to like talk about some principles, but a strategy might be to introduce a unique offer or a unique bundle. You don't want to take your sort of central, I mean, changing the price on your central cornerstone product by which all other products are relative to is a big, big decision.
Yeah.
Probably one you don't want to take lightly. One other thing, I was hanging out at DC Austin at one of our events a few years ago, and this member, Scott, we were sitting around a table, and Scott was like, dude, I can't believe you guys charge like 600 or 700, whatever it was. He was like, I would easily pay 1,500 for this event. Like this event is worth so much more than $700. And everybody was like around the table, like, of course.
Yeah, I'd pay more too.
Definitely, I'd pay more. Like this is totally worth $1,500. And Jason Cohen, who writes A Smart Bear, one of the just straight up smartest people I've ever
runs
encountered.
WP Engine.
He runs WP Engine here.
Or he did actually. Now he has a CEO that runs it, but he started it.
Smart.
Yeah.
You know, and he weighs in with this contrarian view, which he said, no. That's exactly what you want your customers to say. You want your customers to think that your product is an absolute no-brainer. It's like when I see audible.com come through my like Bank of America, mint.com thing every month, and it says $15 a month for audible.com. I'm like, that's never getting canceled. Like never will I cancel Audible because every day I listen to a book. And if Audible comes through and it's like, say Audible knew that I love it so much, and they know that everybody loves it. So now they're creeping that thing up and it's like $150, it's $250 a month. What? These are the world's greatest books. Now all of a sudden you got a sales team saying it's freaking Shakespeare, man, $250. And it's like, okay, I get it, but like I'm gonna cancel that jam. So this is something I want to call emotional margin. You want your customers and your clients to not feel like they're constantly analyzing why they're paying you all the time. And I'll tell you what a symptom of emotional margin is. If you have a lot of it, you don't need a strong sales process and you don't need a strong marketing. Not that that wouldn't help, but you don't need it because there's so much margin there that your customers sell it for you that you don't need to convince people. It's $15 a month. It's a no-brainer.
Here's the problem.
Yeah.
Here's the problem with what you're saying. If I don't raise my prices and if I keep my margins that thin, I personally won't make money. That's the problem, is that a lot of times small business owners, consultants, their personal income is directly connected to the price of the product. And you cannot do that.
You cannot think like that. If you think about your business in terms of your personal income rather than as a business unit that generates profit, I think that's unhealthy because you're going to build different systems. And those systems are going to be tailored around your needs instead of around the market and the customer's needs. I want to say one more thing because it's not it's not just like product people and service people. There's a great entrepreneur, Nat from Growth Engine, mentioned this specifically when he was speaking with me. He said, I run an agency, and Nat built his agency, which is multi-million-dollar agency. He's a super smart guy. And he has a concept, which he talks about. He says, look, I don't charge as much as I could. And why do I do that? Because I don't want my clients to question why I want to be a no-brainer, because he has Fortune 500 clients, and we're going to have him on the pod next week so you can hear this story directly from him. But he said, this is how I built my multi-million-dollar agency, is that I'm not trying to constantly convince my clients that I'm super valuable. He started out with a personal asset, which is he turned into a digital nomad, and he wrote a personal development blog for a few years, which convinced really smart entrepreneurs that he was someone worth listening to because he demonstrated his clarity of thought. So people hired him. He did free case studies for people like Noah. Now, other entrepreneurs say, man, Noah hired that guy. He's really smart. He created all those results. I'll hire him. That led to this agency. And Nat continued to be smart, which is saying, I'm not going to turn the screws on all my clients. I'm going to be the no-brainer. I'm going to find something with emotional margin. So something to think about there. those are just some thoughts. I think this is a bigger conversation that we should, have, but I appreciate the prompt there.
Yeah, this has been great. Thank you so much for all the chat. If you have something else, throw it in there real quick, but this is going on an hour now. This is actually the longest one that we've done.
This is too much. This is bad for everybody listening to this. It's going to turn your brains into mush listening to us too long.
Really appreciate everybody showing up and putting comments in the chat there.
Yeah.
And tomorrow, what are we talking about?
Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about, is digital nomading dead? And we're also going to talk about home base concepts. We're going to talk about travel in the age of Corona. And we're going to do Q&A and hang out with y'all. So invite your friends. And yeah, we're all quarantined. Might as well be quarantined together.
Back at the Podshop. Taylor Banks says, my brain is mush now. Thanks a lot, guys. All right, we're going to end on that. Thank you.
Sorry about that, Taylor. Thanks, everybody, for showing up. See you tomorrow.